Welcome to episode 17 of My Body the Guitar with Karla Linn Merrifield. Great to see you, Karla.
Great to see you, Paul, and everybody out there who will be watching.
So today's subject, Karla.
Joni Mitchell. Again, this is, I've been kind of, because I know this series is winding down, and I've kind of been saving my, other than Jackson Browne, saving my favorites for the end. And Joni Mitchell is definitely, she's the leading singer, songwriter, guitarist in my pantheon. Body Rate comes real close, but Joni has been with me again since I was a teenager, and she burst on the scene with Big Yellow Taxi, and I fell in love, and I have been following her career ever since, which is quite a feat in itself, because it's a long and rich career of continual evolution and testing new boundaries with her songs. So here we are with Joni.
Brilliant. I can't wait. So which poem would you like to do first, Karla?
Okay. Yeah, I have two for Joni in this book. And let's do the little, the shorter one, which is kind of, I guess, an intro in a way to focus on her guitar style. And it's called Tonka Triptych, Joni. So a tonka is simply a 5-line Japanese form. I think of it, I may have even said this in an earlier episode, as a haiku on steroids, because instead of just 3 lines, you get 5 lines. So, and this is a triptych, so it pairs 3 pieces. So I'll read it. Tonka Triptych, Joni. Continue finger picking simile. Love me so naughty, make me weak in the knees. A coda, standard tuned, moderately. It was the hexagram of the heavens. It was strings of my guitar. My grandmother's name in the I Ching of your music. Learn A7 sustained, because we are stardust. We are golden chords, and your AS sus, its third omitted, strums memory.
So beautiful. So much to talk about in there. I really love the way that you've picked some of the great aspects of Joni Mitchell's guitar playing and compositions, because we'll come to those in a bit. But the first couple of lines, Karla, that's about the continued finger picking simile. Can you talk about those, please?
I have been discovering over and over again in exploring guitar playing and the guitarists who make such beautiful music. I've learned a lot about how the parallels between their performances and my work as a poet. And in a lot of ways, chord progressions, for example, I think are their own simile. And I've been looking at how those parallels might come together. And if you're in, say, if you're in a minor chord sequence, you know what that mood is from the sounds of the minors, and it lends itself then to maybe in my mind, poetically in verbiage, in words, to something melancholy or sad. So I think there's a lot of ways to take music performance and apply it to poetry. And her lyrics certainly are poetic. But the music itself and what she does to it, I think it's just remarkable. And that a lot of that rests with her tuning. And the reason in this first stanza, where this was a piece, the lines, love me so naughty, Make Me Weak in the Knees is from her song, The River, which may be my favorite Joni Mitchell song. Certainly my favorite Christmas song. Anyway, and it ends with this coda that she switches back to standard tuning, which was very unusual for her. She doesn't do that many songs with standard tuning. She's always, got the lineup of guitars behind her on stage that the stage hands her as she changes songs because it's a completely different tuning. So I started this is like the simile of like kind of ground zero standard tuning, which is where I'm at still. So.
I think one of the things I could add to that, Karla, is what does alternate tunings mean? What happens when you tune the guitar differently? Yeah. Well, this guitar is tuned. This guitar is tuned to the normal tuning. So when I play the open strings, that's what it sounds like, and it's a chord. Now a chord is anything more than one note because it comes from the word accord, an agreement. So it kind of agrees. But what Joni Mitchell does, and so when in this tune, when I put my fingers in certain ways, it sounds that note there is a C. Now if I change the tuning of this string, if I say the A down to a G, that note where I was there is now no longer a C. And so when I play the chord, well, that sounds quite nice actually, but it's no longer that note. So effectively, if you had a piano keyboard, what you would do is if you were doing alternate tunings on the piano, you would be moving the piano keys into different ways. Now, why do people do this? Well, because if I go back to Robert Johnson, if I've retuned this now, so that when I put my finger in a straight line, it's a major chord. It's hot today, can you tell?
Yeah.
That's
Watch those slippery fingers.
So I can actually, instead of, if I do that now, it's like, really? So I've changed the where the notes are on the fretboard. So that means if I'm doing a song, I can do it with one finger. Now, this isn't cheating. This is having the it's looking for a sound on the guitar. So one of Joni Mitchell's famous quotes from the guitar is, "If you find my songs difficult to play, you've not got the right tuning." So she tunes the guitar so that she can use these kind of shapes, but also she discovers, well, how can I put it? Wayne Shorter is one of the greatest jazz musicians of all time. We used to be with Weather Report, Miles Davis, one of the greatest saxophonists in the history of the world. One of the most advanced musicians in terms of harmony. He is encyclopedic and brilliant. And he played with Joni Mitchell, and he even though he played the most advanced jazz pretty much on the planet, he kind of said, "Joni, what's these chords? Where are you getting these chords from?" Because she's changing the sound of the guitar, the tuning of the guitar, so the notes are moving from where they would normally be. So the C is actually now called a B flat, and it's like, oh my God. So obviously, if you're changing the tuning of the guitar, then you want to be you don't want to be doing loads of stuff because the notes are in a different position. So she gets a shape on and kind of moves it around and makes some beautiful, beautiful sounds. And this goes right back to ancient Egypt and Greek with the lyras, because they would tune to what we call an open chord, which is what I've done now, and they would sing to it. So what Joni Mitchell's doing is in the tradition of something that would happen 5,000, 10,000 years ago in Egypt. So it's a really long lineage, and so that's alternate tuning, because I don't want to take too much time because we're talking about talking about the poetry. But that's what she does, and that's why she sounds so different, and that's why one of the reasons she is so brilliant. Thank you. Here endeth this public announcement.
Thank you, because, and that is the bottom line for understanding Joni Mitchell's music, is that her fluidity in changing keys, and even putting Shorter on the spot that he couldn't follow what she was up to. I look at her songbook, And I keep going back to it and, flipping through my favorite songs, saying someday I will learn that. But it's just astounding. And that's the rock bottom foundation for how she approaches her music, creating it, writing the lyrics for it. So a very important key for our audience to understand that concept of alternate tuning.
In the second stanza, Karla, could you talk about the second stanza, please? That's
sure.
Gorgeous.
The second stanza, there are, as each of these stanzas have something pulled from one of her lyrics. And the lyrics here, it was the hexagram of the heavens, it was strings of my guitar. And this is from her song, Amelia. So here we have, here's the poet at work in her music. It was the hexagram of the heavens, it was strings of my guitar. So she is envisioning the 6 strings of the guitar as a Chinese hexagram, a character that is used in the I Ching tradition of casting fortunes and reading the future. I just find it a path to illumination and ways to think about a situation I might be in. But so here she is comparing, her guitar strings to this ancient tradition based on how the Chinese form their ideograms. And for me, that came across as her finding my grandmother in her song. And that's because my grandmother's name was Amelia, and that's the name of the song. And her and Joni's talking about the hexagrams, and it's kind of taking you into this mystical space that with her guitar, that she sees it that way, took me then in turn to a mystical place where I was remembering my grandmother, thanks to Joni Mitchell, how these associations work.
That's so beautiful. Beautiful. And the next stanza, Karla, because this is amazing. I like to come back to this. This next one about the sus chord.
Yes, which you'll please have to play for our audience. This is the lyrics that I've tweezed out of her lyrics come from Woodstock. I think most people would recognize that off the bat. We are stardust, we are golden. And what I did in this particular tonka, in focusing, I kind of drilled into this one particular chord that is a stunning chord. And I saw that stardust and our being golden, not as us, but as stardust and golden chords. And this happens to be, for me, that the A7 sustain happens to be one that kind of vibrated in my ear with, again, kind of a cosmic sound to it that she was able to put to use and please our ears with.
It's such a beautiful way to describe it, because what this chord does is, if I get, I'll play an A major chord. Oh, I'll just reach you in the guitar. I should never reach you in the guitar.
Right. You need guitars lined up behind you.
That would be very nice. This is close enough for jazz. So we've got an A chord here, and that's it. So this is an A chord, A major chord. Very bright sounding. Now what happens, and this goes right back to it goes right back to almost the beginning of music, really. Certainly Gregorian chants. What we do is we get what's called a suspension in the chord. What does that mean? Well, it means that certain note, that the major note, if you like, the thing that defines a major chord is actually suspended and moved up a fret there. So there is a definite suspension. It's like a bridge. It's like, where is this going to go? Where does this resolve to? Well, it resolves back. And so this, when you put this in lyrical form, it's like it sets up a question. And that's what she does so beautifully. Is she sets her lyrics mirror with a harmony. So this is definitely a question that needs resolving, in different ways. So she sets up, and this is the amazing thing I think about Joni Mitchell. One of them is that her lyrics are sublime, and so is her music, because the music mirrors her lyrics, and that is quite rare, because a lot of people write a song and they go, which is fine, but hers is so intricate, and the fact that she has such an incredible voice. I'm thinking back to Blue and things like that, and she's a virtuoso singer. She doesn't get the plaudits that she deserves, because that all of her stuff, but the early stuff is so beautiful and very difficult to sing, because when you hear other people cover those songs, you see how hard they are. So she's technically amazing.
Yeah, on all fronts, and I forget, I lose track of the facts sometimes of the beauty of her voice and its range, and because she's written such poetic lyrics, and many of them are really intricate, and her enunciation. I mean, you never miss a single word in her lyrics when she's singing them. It's so easy to you're singing and you're excited and you're trying to move the song forward, and to let your voice kind of mush over some words or something. She doesn't do that. Every single word is articulate in that absolute pure bell tone voice.
I think also,
so she's the package deal.
I think so. I think also, whenever I listen to Joni Mitchell, it's such an intimate experience, because there's something about the way that I say her pronunciation and her pitch is perfect. Her vowel sounds, everything's just fantastic, and it reaches very deeply. When people talk about Joni Mitchell, it's a really deep feeling that people really love her, I think, and the fact that she's so good, because she's attracted so many fantastic musicians to play with her. Michael Brecker, Jaco Pastorius, everybody wants to play with Joni Mitchell. All the greatest musicians in the world want to play on her records, on live. And Shadows and Light is the perfect example. Pat Metheny on guitar. The list goes on of these incredible people.
And she in doing that, sorry, Paul, to interrupt you, but in doing that, I mean, when you look at the range of people she's played with, I mean, she's crossed all kinds of boundaries. I mean, certainly the jazz was Shorter and Pastorius, Metheny. She duetted with Leonard Cohen and Jackson Browne. I mean, so you're crossing so many genres with her, and she's fluid that way. It's remarkable.
I think what one of the themes throughout your book, when you talk about these great artists, is that I just think I don't know whether it's a conscious decision, but you've picked artists that are practically a genre by themselves. Because Joni Mitchell, is she folk? Is she jazz? Is she rock? Is she? Well, no, she's Joni Mitchell. There's so many of these artists that do so many different styles, and it's just them. Tom Waits. How can you describe Tom Waits? Well, it's Tom Waits music, and so Joni Mitchell to me is a whole genre by herself.
She really is.
I think so. Well, because if you go into a CD store, where do you find Joni Mitchell? I suppose singer-songwriter, but that's an enormous subject. But there's only really, there should be a Joni Mitchell section just for her music, because she is so unique, and what a great role model for anybody, because lyrically phenomenal, musically phenomenal, vocally phenomenal, and such a great performer, and so well liked, and there's such value with Joni Mitchell's music, I think, because everything is top notch for me. Apart from that,
she's been very generous over the years too. I mean, she'll be in attending a concert, and the performer will spot her and summon her up, and she she obliges. She'll on the spot just get invited up on the stage. I mean, some of it, often those are orchestrated, but I just heard that story about she was not too far from here at a local concert in Rochester, just hanging out, and ended up on the stage.
It's brilliant.
I missed it, but my friends didn't, but I missed it.
I had a conversation with my dad actually very recently today actually about role models in music, for young people starting out in music and stuff like that. And I would say Joni Mitchell is one of the ultimate role models for any artist, anything, because it's just elevates the whole thing. She pushes the envelope constantly all the time, and it's wonderful.
Right. And this is over a career that began late 60s, and she's still doing it. She's still bringing out new music. She's still trying new things. I would love to see her sit with you and explore like your 22 string guitar and see what that did to her, and what she found in it. I mean, wouldn't that be a remarkable thing to see her try and wield that marvelous instrument and see what she finds in those 22 strings.
She's amazing. I mean, she really inspires people just to be as good as they can be, because I think the other aspect of Joni Mitchell's music is that I never see it as she's not competitive in the fact that she just delivers. She serves the song. She serves the song like I can't think of, maybe Paul Simon's the same type of thing, but they just serve the song. They want to move people for the power of song, like Leonard Cohen, and the fact that she ticks I defy anyone to say, oh, that box isn't ticked with Joni Mitchell. It's like, really? Don't think so. Yeah. She's incredible. What gave you the idea for that poem, Karla?
Well, the triptych, I was just starting. I actually wrote this fairly early in the sequence of poems for My Body, the Guitar. Joni is in, I mean, these are her two poems, but her name pops up in a few places. But so I was trying to get a handle. I was sitting, I can remember writing the Tonka, and I was sitting with her songbook, and I was listening to her at the same time, and I'm flipping through the songbook, and checking out at the top left the okay, what key is this one in? And then looking at the chord, the tabs for the chords, and I started really listening deeper, and that's, I think, the process of one of the reasons I enjoy Tonka so much is that it's a distillation process, because you may have ideas floating around in your head, and then how do you get them down to those 5 lines? And I decided that one of the things it's in listening and looking at the songbook to do this is in 3 parts. So there are 3 little glimpses into the magic of Joni Mitchell's guitar playing, and what 3 hit me most. Yeah, she can play a standard tune guitar, of course she can, and then leap from there into more like I said, cosmic, with her lyrics to Amelia, and then of course everybody's Woodstock. We all know that song, and then what was the chord that I was hearing, and so I could listen and then look at the page on the songbook and go, oh, that was a A7 sustain. So it was kind of my little, it's an intro to Joni Mitchell's magic is what it is.
Fabulous. That is so beautiful. Is there anything you'd like to add about that poem, Karla?
No, except to say that the last, and this is kind of what we've been talking about, the last triptych, or the last Tonka, ends with that she's playing this A7 sus, and she's strumming memory, and the power, and we've talked about this several times, the power of music to bring back our memories. I mean, for a moment, she brought my grandmother back to life for me. And then, but Woodstock, everybody has, whether you were there or not, people of a certain age will remember that event in their lives. And certainly people who have come after that era have seen the movie. Everybody knows about Woodstock. So she brought that memory back to me with that song. I wasn't there. I was too young.
Beautiful. It's such a
And
beautiful.
she never made it. She didn't make it.
She didn't play Woodstock. Or she
No,
did?
she was supposed to. She didn't make it. So while I think she was on the West, I think the story goes that she was on the West Coast. She was trying to get back over to the East Coast, and something happened, and she couldn't make it. So while Woodstock was going on, she wrote Woodstock, the song.
Wow.
So she didn't play it there. She wasn't there. She wrote the song while everybody else was there. So
fantastic.
And then we
Brilliant.
probably it's the theme song for the event.
Oh, absolutely.
And other people have recorded it. I think Crosby, Stills and Nash made probably the hit with it after the event happened. But yeah.
So she was amazing.
In communion with those people, even though she couldn't be there.
Brilliant. This next point, Karla. Yeah, could you give us the title of it?
Okay. This is again, and this is it's a good follow up to what we were just talking about, music evoking memories. This poem is called "Jammin' on Kelly's Island, Ohio." So it actually is based on a real event in my life of, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, when my husband and I were camping on Kelly's Island which is in Lake Erie off the shore of Ohio. So it's on the US side of Lake Erie. And it's just a marvelous place. And my husband and I wandered down one evening after dinner to the local kind of bar, I guess, but a takeout place, bar. I mean, it's a tiny island, so everything functions, convenience store, takeout, and bar. And there was this teeny bopper. Oh, she was 15, if anything. And she's sitting there with her Martin guitar. And we pulled up chairs and started listening to her on the veranda. And this 15-year-old girl with her Martin guitar starts doing Joni Mitchell. And it was like, first of all, her this young woman's talent was remarkable, and that she was that young, at that remarkable, and that she was playing Joni Mitchell. And it was so reinforcing to me of Joni's impact on music, that here's this little teeny bopper with lots of talent playing Joni Mitchell live on Kelly's Island, of all place. So it's a memory poem for me that draws on Joni's spirit. And the song that is referenced, everybody will probably recognize the lyrics, because it's the refrain for Carrie, which was on the Blue album, one of my favorite Joni Mitchell tunes. Anyway, so discovering Joni Mitchell on Kelly's Island in Ohio. Let me do the poem after a deep breath. Jammin' on Kelly's Island, Ohio. Booga booga is the 2-note password onto the island of razzmatazz beaches. The Cottonwood Club of fuzzed out old trees riffles with the eerie jazz of pirate ghosts and 1812 sailors lost on an inland sea. Moths rap a day-long syncopated beat. You chill like the ice age that played here once. You mellow into happy hour as waves lap the Alvar and the quarrymen rock on until a limestone dawn. One July night and Uncle Dick's flower power makes a comeback. She's a blonde teeny bopper in dreadnoughts, strumming her Martin guitar. She sings in a reedy voice to the glacial grooves of another epic. Hey, you're a mean old daddy, but you're out of sight.
Wow, what a beautiful picture! I can actually when you were reciting the poem, I could. It was just a film was going in my mind of what was going on there. That is, um. So what's the most important in this? What? Sorry, I know what gave you the inspiration for this, Karla, but
Right.
how when you wrote this, I don't think I've asked you this question actually in all the sessions we've done. When you write in this poem particularly, how much do you retain and how much would you kind of discard in terms of constructing it?
Oh, I would say something like this. There were probably twice as many lines that got carved away. I very much want, excuse me, I mean, one of the things about Kelly's Island that comes forth in this is its geology. And the quarries that are there, the limestone, something called glacial grooves, where you can see where the great ice glaciers that covered this section of North America during the Wisconsin age were retreating, and the glaciers and the weight of them with boulders stuck in the bottom. As the glaciers pulled away, they actually chewed grooves into the limestone, and you can stand there and see these things. It's one of the few places on the planet where you can see exposed glacial grooves. And it's just the geology of the place rocks me. And for some reason, the geology of the place and her music, the performer, the young performers, and Joni's music that was inspiring this little concert fused in my mind. And that, Joni Mitchell, being a Canadian girl, would have understood or would understand the importance of this glacial movement because it's part of her history too, since she was from Saskatchewan originally, but all Canadians know about their geology, and they would know that most of the eastern 2/3 of the country were covered under glaciers. So there was something going on I could almost hear the glaciers retreating and grinding into the stone, and that became the jazz that's in this song, the syncopated beats. I heard music in the geology, and the music I heard was Joni Mitchell's.
Wow! When you say you heard music in the geology, Karla, when you were looking at the landscapes, was it bringing memories of tunes back? Joni Mitchell's music back to you?
In a way, it was, because I was hearing. I mean, those glaciers are 10,000 years gone, but you see their evidence, and you understand how those grooves are made, and I can almost hear the grinding that had gone on as like an echo from the past. And it had various pitches. And that was what was interesting, because if there was a big stone that was stuck on the bottom of that retreating glacier, it would make a different sound than a smaller pebble would as it ground its way under all that weight of the glacier. And I was hearing different pitches. And I was not on anything. It was just standing there and being taken back in time, hearing that glacial retreat, and then hearing the different pitches, and just standing still and hearing, and then another size and another size. So it was like more than an octave range in these different pitches I was hearing, and I had probably been listening to Joni earlier in the day, and from my tent, and it was, or the car radio or something, and then there she showed up that evening, Joni Mitchell, being channeled through this 15-year-old girl. So they came together. And that's the magic of poetry. It's not planned. It's just, it happens.
I think it's such a really interesting point that you bring up there, Karla, because hearing musical pitches in nature, and absolutely, because I think what I'm trying to say is that pitches are part of creation. You know, and I've only had a cup of coffee, so I'm not been having wine, but they are part of creation because atoms vibrate and make a sound. So what people often say, oh yeah, that sounds like a musical thing. Well, let's reverse that round, because Pythagoras, who was the one that kind of discovered, he didn't invent, but he discovered musical theory in terms of he heard a blacksmith hitting the two anvils at different pitches. Right. So what Pythagoras has done, I think, is he's harnessed the sounds of nature and condensed them into what we know as music. But wherever you go, if you rev an engine, like that, maybe a bit better than that, but that is a musical pitch. That was a fourth. Oh, let me turn it up. A dog barking we would recognize that a musical pitch. Birdsong, the composer Messiaen would transcribe birdsong, whale song. So it's really really interesting because music harnesses and puts into some sort of order that we can understand the sound of nature, but the sounds have been there since the dawn of wherever it started. They were there already. So all Pythagoras did was he put it into, he formulated it so that we could understand music. But in fact, music has been there since the dawn of the time, whenever that may be, you know. And so we kind of hear this music as it's like, oh, that sounds like a tune, you know. That if you have a dripping tap, sometimes the dripping tap is going, and sometimes if you increase the tap, the rhythms get faster, and it's like, oh, that sounds like a drum roll or something like that. Or in fact, this is how crazy it gets. I was cleaning my teeth the other day. I'm going somewhere with this, and the window was open, and I could hear this saw, this power. Someone was cutting down a tree, and it was going like this, and I could actually hear there was two notes in the saw. The saw had two notes. There was an overtone, and it was actually the pitch of it was four notes apart. It was a fourth, and it's really interesting how, like I say, if we think of music being, we're interpreting nature, the sounds of nature, through pitches, so we can understand it. But it's been there forever, and we're just kind of late to the party, you know. So when you hear nature, you know, you are hearing those tones. They are pitches that we just take as a C, but in fact they've been there for forever. You know, in fact, before the Earth was made, they're part of the universe.
Right. I wonder what the Big Bang sounded like. You know,
Black Sabbath.
And I think, you know, part of the point of this poem, in linking this remarkable geology with a remarkable singer-songwriter, is this, if you wanted to sum it up in one phrase, it would be Joni Mitchell is timeless. And that's the bedrock. Happens to be limestone, but the bedrock of this poem is to say, it's my way of saying she's timeless. And part of that is, you know, there were the rocks, and there's Joni, and then there's this new generation who's continuing to play her music.
And you mentioned that it was a teeny bopper playing Joni Mitchell. So I was going to ask you, Karla, if she's a teeny bopper, how would she have discovered Joni Mitchell, do you think?
I have no idea. Maybe her parents probably may have played Joni Mitchell, or she was actually the niece of this Uncle Dick's, which was the name of the place. She was actually that Uncle Dick's niece. So she could have heard it on jukeboxes there, if they had a jukebox, I don't know, or her hometown, wherever that might have been. And I would guess parents, her parent. And she may have been Canadian because a lot of Canadians came over across Lake Erie to Kelly's Island. There was a lot of boat traffic. Even after 911, I mean, this was like 2020, this happened in 2012, maybe 2013. And parents, hanging out with them, hanging out with her Uncle Dick, listening to what was going on in camp. I know, but she had it down. And she played, here's Joni playing. This is Joni playing a D28 Martin.
Nice.
Okay. And this young lady had a D28. And that's a lot of guitar for a little girl, a little woman.
It is. I mean, the Martin guitars go right back to 1850. I think the first Martin guitar, I think, was 1850. I think it was. And the Martin guitars are almost a little bit like Joni Mitchell in the fact that they're just one of the all-time greats. I mean, if you're making an acoustic guitar, generally all the great makers kind of gravitate to the Martin design. They had this inside the guitar. They had the X. I think I'm right saying they had the X brace inside the guitar. Yeah, which makes it very strong and very resonant. And that is part of Joni Mitchell's sound. I think is the fact that it's interesting how instruments can inspire people to make certain sounds, to make certain styles, because it really wraps around a human voice. The Martin guitar. I mean, this isn't a Martin guitar; it's a great guitar, but the Martin guitar wraps itself beautifully sonically around a human voice. That's why. That's one of the reasons it sounds so great.
And why it's been imitated, and why. I mean, think about a 15-year-old girl playing a Martin guitar. I mean, just how did she afford that? I mean, they have lower range, lower priced Martins, but this was a full D28. So that little girl was playing, a couple $1,000, $3,000 worth of guitar.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God. But it's kind of the most iconic. I think. I'm prejudiced. I own one. I love him, and I pay attention to them. And they've got a marvelous, by the way, book that the Martin guitar family has published about the history of the Martin guitars from the get-go and how that happened. They're still going strong. So.
I think everything about that we're talking about with Joni Mitchell is just quality, isn't it? Quality from her artwork on her album covers, to the songs.
Oh, yeah.
There's all that side of thing as well. And the fact that she celebrated people like Charlie Mingus, which really would have brought Charlie Mingus to a lot more people, because not everyone knows who Charlie Mingus is, or was, I should say. But when she does the Mingus album with Jacko, and then all of a sudden, if people get into Charlie Mingus, which is amazing music, it's like, oh my God, the doors open yet again. Goodbye Pork Pie Hat is a really beautiful song, and the fact that she's kind of channeled Charlie Mingus type of attitude through that is incredible, and it's certainly, a Mingus is an iconic artist in jazz for certain, but now a lot of singer-songwriters say, oh, Charlie Mingus, and if you get to Charlie Mingus, then all of a sudden there's a lot of complex music, beautiful music, and real fabulous expression, and of course it swings like crazy because of Charlie Mingus, the amazing double bassist, so everything's there. That's kind of, kind of pushing forward. Although she's kind of linked she's a bit like in the same way as probably Carole King, where it's just beautifully crafted and performed songs. There's such a quality about this time, and maybe because they came a lot in folk clubs where you sat with a guitar and sometimes no mic, so there's nowhere to hide. There's, you're delivering a song, and when you're playing in a lot of coffee houses and stuff, and people I've done it myself, where people are kind of sat 2 feet from in different times, sat 2 feet away from you when you're singing and playing, and it's a really really beautiful atmosphere, as long as it's going well, and really intimate. And I think people really enjoy that connection with the audience. And I think those intimate concerts she did in her early days really bared fruit in the later days, because she could play a stadium and still make it feel like a little club.
Right.
You know,
And play with anybody, anywhere, no matter what the venue was, and you get her attention. It's hard to see Joni Mitchell. I've not seen her in concert ever. That's a dream to become true. But you watch the videos, and you're right about that intimacy. And people tend to put their drinks down and pay attention. She has a commanding presence, and you want to lean in and hear every word. So you can see in those live performances the attentiveness of the audience to her performance.
And I think also, I mean, dynamically singing wise, she's I would say she's quite understated in the way she sings. Really, she's certainly not on like a pyrotechnical, big range, big massive, but again, so delicate. And she kind of her early albums remind me of an Italian style of singing called bel canto, which is just beautiful singing, where it's very, very, very agile, and really agile and totally her style. She's not trying to be, she's not trying to be Aretha Franklin and stuff like that. It's her style completely. And I think she empowered so many, particularly women, actually, to sing like them. I'm thinking of Sarah McLachlan, Paula Cole, and all these great singer-songwriters. And I think she empowered people to be themselves, because there's no one like Joni Mitchell, and she doesn't sound like anyone that I've heard before. So she empowers modern artists to think, well, I'm just going to do what I do. She I'm a massive fan. And the fact that she's herself, she doesn't have to do anything but be Joni Mitchell. And that's the magnetic pull, I think. She's not, if she was on a reality show singing now, she might not get anywhere, which is probably a good thing, because, she's pulling people in an intimate way, rather than smacking around the head saying, yeah, I've got, look what I can do, and that's a very rare gift, I think.
There's a humility about her that, when she approaches her music and performs it, it's to serve the music, and she is another instrument, a lot in tandem with her guitar. They are the instruments delivering that piece of music. She is not flamboyant. Maybe she's worn spangles sometime in her life, but it's a very quiet presence that's there to serve the song.
And I see that with your poetry, Karla, is that it really speaks, speaks to me when I see that. It's just the words just jump out of the page, and it's just like, wow, it just tells the story perfect. For me, it tells the story perfectly. I can totally see that jamming on Kelly's Island. I can reading your poem, I can see the film in my head. It's like, oh wow, that's and with the guitar, when you describe the Martin guitar, the fact it's a dreadnought is it. I mean, what a great word dreadnoughts is anyway. You can kind of see the detail in those beautiful guitars, and it's glacial grooves is I never heard that term before, but that's got to be the greatest name for like a funky band. The glacial grooves.
I know. It's got that music relationship in it. You got to hit the groove, right? Only these are geologic grooves, and I don't know. We poets get trippy sometimes, even without outside help. Like I said, it's all to me. It was all about timelessness. It was all about timelessness, and Joni Mitchell's that quality of hers.
Do you know what's just popped into my mind, Karla? This is probably isn't so relevant, or maybe it is. But when you're talking about these glacial grooves, and you're in, you're looking at this beautiful geology, I can see the camera like behind you, and you're looking at the glacial grooves. And then the camera pans out, and all of a sudden these glacial grooves are part of a massive record that's just playing on the face of the earth like that. So. And all of a sudden the needle comes in and it gets the sound, because it's just, I mean, maybe that's not too relevant to what we're talking about, but there is something very humbling about that type of scenery, isn't there? I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It really, you can, even if you don't have an imagination that can hear glaciers retreating in rock. People who come there, I mean, little kids who come and stand there and look at that, or people who go, I mean, think about the Grand Canyon in the United States. I mean, you just stand there in all of this geology, and you may not understand all the terminology and the process of erosion with water and wind and stuff, or glaciers. But there's, it grounds you to, this is your planet and this is where you live. And these things happened. And even little kids who were staring at those glacial grooves, one kid, I remember what he wanted to get past, there's a chain link fence to protect them in a few spots. There's several locations on the island where you can see them. And this little kid really wanted to climb up that. He wanted to crawl. And he was telling his mother, I want to crawl in there. He wanted to crawl down those grooves.
It's amazing.
He'll remember that. That kid will remember that the rest of his life.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that scenery stays with you, and I think sometimes, certainly, there's so many great Canadian songwriters that have kind of grow up in nature, and I think that kind of has an effect on people. I think if you grow up in like in a beautiful place, if you grow up in a city, which nothing wrong with that, of course, there's kind of a hard edge to city life, but I think growing up in the countryside in beautiful scenery, there's a kind of connection to nature, I think, which comes through in her music. I think I think for certain. Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add, Karla? Because we talked about so many different aspects of this poem.
No, the only thing I could say is that I am still, especially, it's going on 2 years I've been playing the guitar, and I still think of this young woman with powerful envy, that she was at that level of accomplishment at her young age. So this poem for me also becomes continued inspiration, to keep at it.
Oh yeah. Well, it's always, it's all about the journey, isn't it? It's absolutely, yes. and it's particularly just one thing to add about the Martin guitar. It's kind of, they just got it right in 1850 pretty much. Really, like the Fender Stratocaster in 1952, I think 54, Telecaster 59, and stuff like that. And it's the fact that the vibrations, you can feel them when you play a chord. You've got that connection with the sound, and it really puts you in touch in a different place when you hear a great acoustic guitar up close, because it's like, oh, this is fantastic, and it's all the overtones that go with it as well, and it's just wonderful. These are amazing poems, Karla, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Paul.
It's brilliant, and I can't believe it. So this is episode 17.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I can't wait.
As I understand it, we have one more to go.
Wow, that's amazing! I can't wait for that. The next one, because every day is a school day for me for certain. And this has been another masterclass in poetry, Karla. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, brilliant. And thank everybody out there. Go out, enjoy the summer day, the rest of the summer day or evening in the UK, and we'll be back one more time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karla. Have a lovely time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Bye.